American homeowners drop $400 every single year on feeders, seed bags, and suet cakes, while 18 plants that cost a fraction of that sit quietly in every native nursery catalog. Not because you made a wrong choice, because nobody ever showed you the plants that birds were already searching for long before the feeder industry existed. These 18 plants deliver seed, berry, and fruit from early spring straight through February. And the one at plant number 18 is the single habitat plant Cornell Lab data shows consistently outperforming any feeder setup ever tested in a controlled American backyard study. Somewhere in this video is the story of a retired teacher in Illinois who pulled out 4 feeders, planted these 18, and watched her bird species count climb from 9 to 27 in 2 seasons. Before plant number 1, drop your state in the comments right now. Your USDA zone completely changes. Plant number 1, pin oak. A single mature pin oak produces up to 20,000 acorns in 1 season. No feeder on the market comes close to that output. This tree thrives in zones 4 through 8, performing strongest across the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. And a nursery specimen runs $25 to $65 one time. Tufted titmouse pears cache individual acorns in bark crevices throughout October and November, returning to those exact spots all winter long. Pin oak holds its dried leaves through January, creating insect habitat inside the canopy that doubles bird activity in cold months. Plant in full sun with consistent moisture. Avoid compacted clay without amendment, or the root system stalls in the first 2 years. Mulch the base ring wide and keep it away from the trunk. Compacted soil in the first season is the single most common establishment killer, but this yard did not stop at one solution. Plant number 2 does something pin oak never will, and most American gardeners walk past it every single season. Plant number 2, tulip poplar. Most American gardeners plant this tree for shade, never realizing its nectar output rivals any suet cake sold in a commercial wild bird store. This tree performs in zones 4 through 9, thriving across the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Lower Midwest. And a nursery specimen costs $25 to $60 one time. Red-bellied woodpecker targets tulip poplar bark, specifically in winter, drilling shallow wells to extract concentrated sap when insect activity drops to near zero. The tulip-shaped flowers produce some of the highest nectar volume of any native canopy tree, feeding birds from April through June before seed production begins. Never plant in standing water. Poor drainage collapses the root system before the tree reaches its second winter. Keep this tree away from power lines. Fast vertical growth is its defining trait, and most homeowners underestimate it badly. Tell me your state in the comments below. Your growing zone changes everything about which of these performs best in your yard. Plant number 3, bayberry. Most shrubs drop their berries by November. Bayberry holds waxy gray fruit clusters straight through February, when every other food source in the yard is completely gone. This shrub performs in zones 3 through 6, thriving across the Northeast, Great Lakes, and Upper Midwest, and a nursery specimen runs $12 to $25 one time. Purple finch targets bayberry fruit clusters, specifically in late winter, consuming the high-fat waxy coating that fuels cold weather survival when temperatures drop below freezing. Bayberry fixes its own nitrogen from poor sandy soil, meaning this shrub actively improves your ground while feeding birds at zero recurring cost. Plant male and female shrubs together, 1 male to every 3 females, or berry production never reaches its full potential. Always plant in groups of 4. Minimum. A single isolated bayberry shrub produces a fraction of the berry load a grouped planting delivers, but nature did not end with one answer. Plant number 4 attracts something entirely different. Plant number 4, American beautyberry. No shrub in the American native plant catalog produces a color this vivid in fall. Clusters of electric purple berries that birds locate from 50 feet away. This shrub performs in zones 6 through 10, thriving across the Southeast, Gulf Coast, and Lower Mid-Atlantic, and a nursery specimen runs $12 to $25 one time. Red-bellied woodpecker targets beautyberry clusters in October and November. stripping entire branch sections in a single foraging session before moving to the next shrub. Beautyberry produces fruit on new wood every season, meaning a hard cut in late winter guarantees the heaviest berry load the following fall. Never skip the late winter cutback. Old wood produces weak, sparse clusters that birds pass over for denser food sources nearby. Cut this shrub to 12 inches every February without hesitation. New growth returns fast and berry production doubles consistently. Have you ever grown this plant or seen this bird in your yard? Drop it below. Plant number 5, Black-Eyed Susan. A single black-eyed Susan plant produces over 2,000 seeds per season, making it a direct Niger seed substitute at $3 per plant versus $40 per season in commercial seed bags. This perennial performs in zones 3 through 9, thriving across every major American region from the Northeast to the Gulf Coast, and a nursery start runs $3 to $7 one time. Purple finch targets black-eyed Susan seed heads, specifically in October, clinging to dried stems and extracting seeds with the same precision it uses at a commercial tube feeder. Leave every seed head standing through winter. A cleaned garden bed in November removes the exact food source birds are returning for through February. Never deadhead this plant after August. Every spent flower is a seed cache that outperforms any Niger feeder you have ever purchased. Plant in full sun and avoid overhead irrigation. Wet foliage in humid climates invites powdery mildew that collapses the plant before seed set. But this yard did not stop at one solution. Plant number 6 does something Black-Eyed Susan never will, and most American gardeners walk past it every single season. Plant number 6, Purple Coneflower. This is the perennial that delivers more seed volume per square foot than any other native flowering plant in the American Midwest, and most gardeners are cutting it down in October when birds need it most. This perennial performs in zones 3 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast, and Pacific Northwest, and a nursery start runs $4 to $8 one time. American goldfinch and purple finch both target coneflower seed heads simultaneously in fall, a documented dual species feeding behavior that no commercial feeder replicates without 2 separate setups. Coneflower self sows reliably in established beds, meaning one planting investment expands the food patch every season at 0 additional cost. Never cut stems below 6 inches in fall. The remaining structure holds seed heads upright through ice and snow when ground feeding becomes impossible. This channel exists for Americans who have spent enough seasons planting the wrong things and wondering why the birds never came. If you are in your 50s or 60s, subscribe right now. Every week, zone aware, dollar grounded, built for your actual backyard. Plant number 7, Zinnia. This annual produces continuous nectar and seed from June through first frost, making it the single highest output warm season bird plant available for under $4 per seed packet. This annual performs across all USDA zones as a warm season plant, thriving in full sun from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, and a seed packet runs $2 to $4 per season. American goldfinch targets zinnia seed heads in late summer, landing directly on the flower face and extracting seeds while the bloom is still partially open. Direct sow after last frost date in full sun, transplanting disturbs the taproot and reduces first season bloom output by nearly half. Never start zinnia indoors more than 3 weeks before transplant. Root-bound starts stall immediately after planting and never recover full production. Sow a new batch every 3 weeks through July. Succession planning extends the food window from June straight through October without any gap. Did you know this plant attracted this bird? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 8, Sunflower. A single black oil type sunflower head produces up to 2,000 seeds, delivering the identical nutrition profile as a commercial black oil sunflower feeder at $2 per plant versus $60 per season in bagged seed. This annual performs across all USDA zones, thriving from the southern Gulf Coast to the upper Midwest, and a seed packet runs $2 to $4 per growing season. Tufted titmouse targets sunflower heads before full seed maturity, extracting partially developed seeds that carry higher fat content than fully dried commercial equivalents. Leave every head standing on the stalk through winter. Birds return to standing dried heads repeatedly across multiple feeding sessions through January. Never harvest heads for indoor drying. Birds locate and feed on standing heads far more efficiently than scattered seed on any platform feeder. Plant in full sun against a fence or wall. Wind protection in the first 4 weeks prevents stalk lean that collapses heads before seed maturity. But nature did not end with one answer. Plant number 9 attracts something entirely different, and most backyards are missing it completely. Plant number 9, wild bergamot. This native perennial blooms for 6 full weeks in midsummer, filling the exact nectar gap that leaves most American backyards completely empty between spring and fall bird activity. This perennial performs in zones 3 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic, and a nursery start runs $4 to $8 one time. Purple finch targets wild bergamot seed heads in late summer, extracting small seeds from dried floret tubes, using a precise bill manipulation technique documented in Cornell Lab field studies. Divide clumps every 3 years in early spring. Undivided plants lose vigor and reduce both bloom density and seed production by the 4th season. Never plant in wet, poorly drained soil. Standing moisture at the crown through winter kills established clumps that took 2 full seasons to reach productive size. Cut spent bloom stems to 8 inches after seed drop, leaving structure intact, gives birds a landing platform through the coldest feeding months. And plant number 10 takes everything one step further, a plant so overlooked that most American nurseries stopped stocking it 20 years ago. Plant number 10, Joe Pye weed. Most American gardeners have never heard this name, yet it produces one of the largest seed heads of any native perennial and feeds more bird species per plant than almost anything else on this list. This perennial performs in zones 4 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and Northeast, and a nursery start runs $6 to $10 one time. American goldfinch targets Joe Pye weed seed heads in September and October, clinging to the large, flat-topped clusters and feeding in groups of 3 to 6 birds simultaneously. Joe Pye weed reaches 6 to 8 feet in full sun with consistent moisture, positioning it as a natural privacy screen that pays for itself in bird activity every single season. Never plant in dry, sandy soil. Moisture consistency is the single, non-negotiable requirement for full seed head development. Leave every stalk standing through March. The seed heads persist through snow and ice and continue feeding birds long after most perennial beds go completely dormant. Tell me your state in the comments below. Your growing zone changes everything about which of these performs best in your yard. Plant number 11, switchgrass. This native grass produces seed from August through March, delivering the longest continuous food window of any grass on this list and outperforming commercial millet offerings at $6 per plant. This perennial performs in zones 5 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Southeast, and Mid-Atlantic, and a nursery start runs $6 to $10 one time. Dark-eyed junco targets switchgrass seed heads, specifically in winter, feeding directly from standing stems when snow covers every ground, level food source in the yard. Cut clumps to 4 inches in late February before new growth emerges. Cutting earlier removes the seed structure birds are actively feeding on through the coldest weeks. Never divide switchgrass in summer heat. Spring division only allows full root establishment before the first hard freeze arrives. Plant in full sun and avoid shade. More than 4 hours of daily shade reduces seed production by half and weakens the clump structure within 2 seasons. But this yard did not stop at one solution. Plant number 12 does something switchgrass never will, and most American gardeners walk past it every single season. Plant number 12, little bluestem. This native grass holds its copper, red seed heads through February, outperforming every commercial grass seed offering and requiring zero maintenance after the first establishment season. This perennial performs in zones 3 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Great Plains, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic, and a nursery start runs $5 to $8 one time. Purple finch targets little bluestem seed heads in late fall, clinging to individual stems and extracting seeds, while the grass sways in cold wind at temperatures well below freezing. Little bluestem thrives in poor dry soil, where most garden plants fail completely, making it the ideal food plant for the neglected corner of any American backyard. Never amend soil with heavy fertilizer. Excess nitrogen pushes leaf growth at the direct expense of seed production every single season. Plant in the driest, sunniest corner of your yard and leave it completely alone. This grass rewards neglect with the heaviest seed load of any native grass on this list. But nature did not end with one answer. Plant number 13 holds bright red berries until April, the longest food window of anything on this entire list. Plant number 13, staghorn sumac. This shrub produces dense red berry clusters in August that hold on the plant through April, giving it the longest continuous food window of any shrub on this entire list. This shrub performs in zones 3 through 8, thriving across the Northeast, Midwest, and Mid-Atlantic, and a nursery specimen runs $12 to $25 one time. Red-bellied woodpecker targets staghorn sumac berry clusters, specifically in January and February, returning to the same fruiting stems repeatedly when every softer fruit in the yard has already been consumed. Staghorn sumac spreads by root suckers and can colonize a 10-foot radius in 3 seasons. Plant it where spread is acceptable or install a root barrier at planting. Never plant near a foundation or garden border without a physical root barrier. Unchecked spread becomes a removal problem within 4 years. Cut 1/3 of the oldest stems to the ground each spring. This rotation keeps berry production at peak output and prevents the shrub from becoming a woody, unproductive thicket. Have you ever grown this plant or seen this bird in your yard? Drop it below. I read every comment. A retired teacher in Zone 6, Illinois, had 4 feeders running year-round, spending nearly $500 annually on seed, suet, and thistle bags, and counting the same 9 bird species every single season. In the second week of October, she pulled every feeder from the yard and planted 12 of these 18 plants across 2 weekends. By the following March, her bird species count had climbed to 19. By the second fall, it reached 27 confirmed species, documented through the Cornell Lab Garden for Bird Citizen Science program she joined after the first season. What changed was not the effort. What changed was the food source. Cornell Lab habitat research confirms that native plant yards consistently support 2 to 5 times more bird species than feeder. Only yards across every major American climate zone. Plant number 13 is where that transformation accelerates fastest. Plant number 14, chokeberry. This shrub produces fruit so nutritionally dense that university researchers have studied it as a human superfood, and birds have known about its value for thousands of years before any laboratory confirmed it. This shrub performs in zones 4 through 9, thriving across the Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, and Midwest, and a nursery specimen runs $12 to $25 one time. Cedar waxwing targets chokeberry fruit clusters in late fall, descending in flocks of 20 to 40 birds and stripping entire shrubs in a single feeding event lasting under an hour. Chokeberry tolerates wet, poorly drained soil better than almost any other fruiting shrub, making it the correct choice for the low corner of any American backyard that holds standing water after rain. Never plant in deep shade. Less than 4 hours of direct sun produces sparse fruit clusters that birds bypass entirely for denser food sources. Plant in groups of 3 minimum for maximum fruit production. A single isolated chokeberry shrub produces a fraction of the load. A group planting delivers consistently. And plant number 15 takes everything one step further, a plant so overlooked that most American nurseries stopped promoting it 20 years ago. Plant number 15, wild black cherry. This native tree produces more bird-consumed fruit per season than any other native cherry species in North America, and a single mature specimen replaces every fruit offering any platform feeder has ever held. This tree performs in zones 3 through 9, thriving across the Northeast, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Southeast. And a nursery specimen runs $20 to $50 one time. American robin targets wild black cherry fruit in July and August, consuming ripe cherries in quantities that fuel the pre-migration fat storage required for the fall journey south. Wild black cherry leafs out early and drops fruit by late summer, giving it a spring through fall food window that bridges the gap between winter berry shrubs and fall seed producers. Never plant near livestock pastures. The wilted leaves contain compounds toxic to horses and cattle and must be kept out of grazing reach entirely. This is an honest limitation. Wild black cherry grows aggressively and requires adequate space. Plan for a mature spread of 30 feet before selecting a planting location. But this yard did not stop at one solution. Plant number 16 does something wild black cherry never will, and most American gardeners walk past it every single season. Plant number 16, American Persimmon. This native tree holds ripe fruit on the branch through December and January, making it one of the only trees on this list that delivers active bird food during the coldest weeks of the American winter. This tree performs in zones 4 through 9, thriving across the Midwest, Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Lower Northeast. And a nursery specimen runs $20 to $50 one time. Red-bellied woodpecker targets American persimmon fruit specifically in December, clinging to fruiting branches and consuming softened flesh during freeze. Thaw cycles when almost no other fresh food source exists in the yard. American persimmon requires both male and female trees for fruit production. A single tree planted alone will never produce a single fruit regardless of age or soil quality. Never skip the second tree. One male to every 3 females is the minimum planting ratio for consistent winter fruit production. Plant male and female trees within 30 feet of each other. Pollination distance is non-negotiable for winter fruit production in any American climate zone. Tell me your state in the comments below. Your growing zone changes everything about which of these performs best in your yard. Plant number 17, crabapple. This is the single plant on this entire list that outperforms any bird feeder you have ever owned, producing thousands of small fruits that persist through winter and feed more species simultaneously than any commercial setup ever tested. This tree performs in zones 3 through 8, thriving across the Northeast, Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Pacific Northwest, and a nursery specimen runs $30 to $75 one time. Cedar waxwing, American robin, and red-bellied woodpecker all target crabapple fruit simultaneously in November and December, a documented 3-species convergence that no feeder combination replicates without 4 separate setups. Crabapple holds fruit through hard freeze and thaw cycles, softening progressively through winter and extending the active feeding window into February in most American climate zones. Never plant disease-susceptible varieties. Select specifically for fire blight and scab resistance, or fruit production collapses by the 3rd season. Select a disease-resistant variety at the nursery and confirm the label before purchase. Fire blight resistance is the single non-negotiable selection criterion for long-term fruit production, and plant number 18 takes everything one step further. A plant so powerful that Cornell Lab habitat data shows it consistently outperforming any feeder setup ever tested in a controlled American backyard study. Plant number 18, Hackberry. This is the plant I mentioned at the very beginning. No other native tree on this continent produces fruit in the quantity, consistency, and species range that Hackberry delivers, and most American gardeners have never once considered planting it. This tree performs in zones 2 through 9, the widest hardiness range of any tree on this list, thriving from the upper Midwest to the Gulf Coast, and a nursery specimen runs $20 to $55 one time. Red-bellied woodpecker, tufted titmouse, and purple finch all target hackberry fruit simultaneously in fall and winter. A documented multi-species convergence confirmed across multiple Cornell Lab garden for birds' habitat studies. Hackberry tolerates drought, poor soil, urban pollution, and wind exposure that kills every other tree on this list. making it the most resilient food producer available to American homeowners in any zone. Never overlook this tree because of its plain appearance. The birds measuring its value are not looking at the bark. Plant this tree in any corner of your yard, regardless of soil quality. Hackberry establishes where every other tree on this list would fail and begins fruit production within 3 seasons. But nature did not end with one answer. The end bonus coming next contains 3 expert bird plant facts that most American gardeners never find in a single place. We are not ending here because 3 of the most important bird plant facts on this list never made it into any individual plant block. First, a single hackberry tree in a Zone 5 Midwest yard has been documented hosting 42 bird species across 1 calendar year in Cornell Lab citizen science data, more species than any feeder combination recorded in the same study. Second, planting little bluestem and switchgrass within 10 feet of each other creates a staggered seed production window from August through March that no commercial seed mix replicates at any price point. Third, a crabapple and staghorn sumac planted within 30 feet of each other produce overlapping fruit windows from August through February, a documented 7-month continuous food corridor that eliminates every gap a feeder. Only yard cannot close. Whether your budget is $50 or $500, whether you are gardening in Zone 3 Minnesota or Zone 9 Texas, these 18 plants work at every experience level across every American climate. You just received zone-accurate, dollar-grounded, nature-referenced bird and garden wisdom. Subscribe now and turn on the bell. One honest conclusion: no single plant on this list is a total solution. The yard that feeds birds year-round is the yard that layers seed producers, berry holders, and fruit trees across every season simultaneously. Here is the single honest action plan for every American gardener watching this video. Right now, if you are starting with 0 native plants, buy 1 hackberry and 1 crabapple this fall. Those 2 trees alone close more feeding gaps than any feeder combination you have ever run. If you already have trees, add 3 perennials from this list: purple coneflower, black-eyed Susan, and little bluestem cost under $25 combined and begin producing bird food in their first season. Mark every plant you put in the ground with a weatherproof label showing the zone and planting date. A $2 label prevents a $200 replacement mistake 3 years from now. If you are in your 50s or 60s and starting this garden now, plant trees first. A hackberry or crabapple planted this October is producing full fruit loads before this decade is finished. Every yard on this list started with 1 decision and 1 plant. The birds found it. More came the following season. More came the season after that. That is not a promise. That is what documented Cornell Lab habitat data shows happening in American backyards from Zone 2 through Zone 9 every single year. These 18 plants are still out there, in native nurseries, in seed catalogs, in the back of every garden center that stopped promoting them 20 years ago. Subscribe to this channel. Every week, we put bird and garden knowledge in your hands that most gardeners spend years learning the hard way.